From a quiet teenager to mass murderer, Naveed Akram and his father Sajid are responsible for the deadliest terrorist attack on Australian soil.
An act of evil anti-Semitism, terrorism, that has struck the heart of our nation.
Australia is in shock at the killing of 15 people on behalf of the Islamic State terrorist group, or ISIS.
These individuals are alleged to have acted alone.
Immediately, questions were asked about intelligence failures.
One of these individuals was known to us, but not in an immediate threat perspective, so obviously we need to look into what happened here.
We tracked down an insider who gathered intelligence for Australia's spy agency ASIO, and he told us astonishing information about the Bondi attackers. Have Australians been told the real story about what happened?
Doesn't match what I knew about the situation.
Was this an intelligence failure?
It has the hallmarks of it.
As the nation seeks truth and healing, this former spy wants to share what he knows with the Royal Commission.
People were killed, and public need to understand and to see what led to this horrible terror attack.
On Four Corners, we retrace the gunmen's path to radicalisation. We examine what authorities knew and when, and we ask whether the Bondi massacre could have been prevented. Along the streets of Cabramatta in Sydney's southwest, Naveed Akram would walk home from school. Hi, Jordan?
Yeah.
Thanks for having us today.
No worries.
Good to meet you.
You too.
Can I come in?
Yeah, sure.
His mate at Cabramatta High, Jordan Barron, joined him most afternoons.
There's a video of me and him in class, you know, giggling, laughing, not taking anything too serious. Yeah.
How does this compare to the Naveed you saw in the Bondi attack?
It just doesn't make any sense at all. It's like two different people, totally.
We're continuing this coverage of this horrific event at Bondi. We've got video of it here.
Jordan was at home on the Sunday evening of December 14 when news of the attack broke.
I hear my mum yelling out to me, Jordan, there's been a shooting in Bondi. I went into the lounge room and yeah, there was a guy standing on the bridge, and the person on the screen turned to the camera, and I saw someone I recognized. Around 5 minutes later, I get a bunch of notifications in one of my Snapchat groups, and all I see is my friends just typing his name, Naveed. And that's when I realized, oh, I know this person. This is Naveed Akram. I just couldn't imagine someone I knew or had memories of commit something so heinous. The only word I can really give him would be quiet.
Jordan says Naveed developed strong beliefs as a teenager.
One thing that everyone at school or everyone in his grade would realize is you don't really make any sexual or raunchy jokes around him. Nothing to do with anything gay. He was very against that. The only times I remember him getting angry or, you know, aggressive would be when anyone mentions anything that would test his faith.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. We're here at Bankstown Station, spreading Dawah, doing the work of the Prophet, continuing the work of the Prophets. Guys, spread Dawah wherever you can. Spread the message, whether it be raining, hailing, or clear sky.
By the age of 17, Naveed Akram had dropped out of school and joined a crew of street preachers.
Inshallah, this will save you on the Day of Judgment.
The group, called Street Dawah, roamed Bankstown to convert teenagers.
Street Dawah in itself is quite common in many places around the world, and it's just a way that people might introduce someone to their religion of Islam. But in Australia, we know that street Dawahs have been involved for a number of decades now in the recruitment of radical and violent extremists.
Peter Lowe has spent more than a decade trying to de-radicalise young terrorists.
Naveed was attending Street Dawah where we know he was directly engaged with individuals who have gone on to be convicted of terrorism offences.
Live in Bankstown, Street Dawah Movement, Australia.
There was a spy inside the group. He was undercover, monitoring terrorists for Australia's intelligence agency, ASIO. He's agreed to talk to us. We're withholding our destination for his safety. It's not the first time we've had to meet like this. Thank you for meeting with us again.
You're welcome.
This man is a former human source for ASIO, known as an agent. His ASIO codename was Marcus. He was never an official employee, but the agency funded his life while he infiltrated Sydney's Islamic State terrorist network for 6 years.
First time I met Naveed, he used to come to join our street Dawah in Bankstown. I didn't see any concern about him. He was very normal and he was very young at that time, with not much knowledge about Islam. He was learning from people around him.
Did you think he was capable of becoming a killer?
No, not at all. No.
ASIO had recruited Marcus from the Middle East to pose as a radical imam in Sydney.
I was pretending I am an extremist. I was pretending I was supporter of ISIS.
8 months before the Bondi attack, he warned Four Corners Australia was dangerously exposed to Islamic State terrorism.
If you attack Allah, if you attack our Prophet, our religion, and our fellow brothers and sisters, and if you attack our lands, then you are going to be met with men who love death more than you love life.
One of his main targets was this notorious preacher, Wisam Haddad, also known as Abu Usaid, a spiritual leader for Australia's Islamic State network. Marcus spent years inside his inner circle.
How important was Abu Usaid to you and to ASIO as a target?
They look at him as he's the most important jihadist, extremist preacher in Sydney.
Wisam Haddad has been on ASIO's radar for most of his adult life. We've mapped his close ties to a web of recruiters, ISIS cells, radical prayer groups, and terrorist leaders abroad.
Assalamu alaikum. Another day of da'wah. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum.
Marcus witnessed how Haddad's preachers recruited young people on the streets and then indoctrinated them at his radical prayer hall, Al Medina Dawah Centre. Marcus said it was like an ISIS training camp.
I told ASIO, you think you are in an ISIL camp in Syria or in Iraq. The materials of ISIL, videos, the songs of ISIL, they are aware about all this information.
In May 2019, Bankstown Street Dawah introduced Naveed Akram on social media as their new brother.
Usually we have a little shahada. So we keep coming, inshallah.
Yeah, well, I'll put him in.
What, do you go to tape or something?
Yeah.
Wisam Haddad's preachers were part of the group.
Most of those attendees of this street Dawah are peaceful, nice, kind people. But unfortunately, some were extremists.
Can you repeat after?
I bear witness.
I bear witness.
That there is no God.
There is no God.
But Allah.
But Allah.
And I bear witness.
Naveed Akram was brought into the group by this preacher called Yahya. He's Wisam Haddad's right-hand man.
This is usually what happens. We stop to get coffee. It's 7-Eleven just before we get to the city, inshallah.
Yahya spent the past decade in street Dawah groups which were monitored by ASIO. The groups were recruiting young Australians to terrorism. Yahya was with the crew filming this video of Naveed in 2019.
Are you in contact with Yahya?
Yeah.
You keep in contact with him?
Yeah.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair.
I'll see you later. I'll see you later.
You're on YouTube. You're on Facebook.
Days after this video was posted online, Yahya drew Naveed in deeper. He invited him to spend 10 nights at Sydney's Othman bin Affan Mosque on a religious retreat for Ramadan called Itikaf, with members of a terror cell Marcus had infiltrated. Four Corners has confirmed Marcus was part of their group at the mosque.
First time I raised a concern about Naveed was during Ramadan 2019, as he was associated with ISIS supporters.
He claims the group brainwashed Naveed with ISIS videos.
There were a group of ISIS supporters, and Naveed was one of those people who did this religious retreat. During those 10 nights, Naveed was exposed to materials of ISIS, including clips, videos, magazines from the Philippines, from Afghanistan, from some parts in Syria and Iraq. I was eyewitness because I was in this i'tikaf, I was in this religious retreat.
We've been unable to independently verify what happened within the group. Marcus says they showed Naveed one video on repeat. An old message from an Australian fighter in Syria where Islamic State was collapsing.
As for those of you who can't make it to this battle, in particular to the Muwahideen in Australia, and if you are unable to make hijrah, then inflict terror upon the kuffar and punish them for their crimes against the Muslims. Make the lands of the Crusaders your battlefield.
He's calling for attacks in Australia.
Yes.
And Naveed watched this?
Yes, during the i'tikaf.
Those nights in late May and early June 2019 were pivotal for Naveed. He came into contact with the terrorist who would land him on ASIO's radar, Isaac el-Matari, the self-declared Australian commander of ISIS. El-Matari was trying to recruit for attacks at that time.
The el-Matari cell. This cell had really quite diverse and significant engagement with the international Islamic State universe or ecosystem. They had connections into Lebanon, into Syria, into Kenya. They were connected to people in the United States, were connected to people in Afghanistan, all part of a broad Islamic State ecosystem.
Isaac el-Matari was plotting to import firearms for an insurgency involving attacks in Sydney, a plan Marcus claims was shared with Naveed.
Naveed was an eyewitness to Isaac, his plan of bringing weapons from Lebanon. Isaac had contact with ISIS extremist group in Lebanon, and those people in this group promised him we can smuggle weapon into Australian borders.
For what?
For a terror attack. For a terror attack targeting some embassies, such as the USA, the Israeli, the Pakistani and the Saudi embassies, churches, public buildings and police stations.
How did your ASIO officers respond when you reported this about Naveed?
They became very interested because it's a very serious matter, and they asked me to put an eye on him.
There's no way we can know what was said between Marcus and his handlers, but the mosque has confirmed Naveed Akram and Isaac El-Matari were with a group who were thrown out from itikaf. In a statement, the mosque said the group's behaviour was hostile and confrontational. Othman bin Affan Mosque stands firmly against extremism and hate. We don't tolerate it. Within weeks of the mosque retreat, the Street Dawah group posted video online of Naveed converting other teenagers.
We will create for ibadah, we'll create to obey Allah, and the first step is salat. The 5 pillars of Islam, the law of Allah is that we obey Him and whatever He says we do. If you guys are in school, yeah? So we just ask the teacher, can I borrow this room? And just go pray for 5 minutes and go back out.
Authorities had been monitoring El-Matari and were becoming increasingly alarmed, as revealed later in court. They secretly recorded him before the mosque retreat as he plotted to spend half a decade building a network of fighters in the bush and the city, with brothers as sleepers and attacks on places of political significance that were open to the public with no security protecting them. He wanted to emulate an ISIS uprising like the boys in Marawi in the southern Philippines in 2017.
It's reasonable to suspect that Naveed would have been exposed to those same sorts of thinking and that those were possibilities for him to take that violent extremist ideology onto in the future. These were relationships that he had and would have been very influential on his thinking at the time.
In July 2019, police arrested members of the terror cell, including Isaac El-Matari. He was later jailed for 7 years for planning terrorist attacks and trying to join ISIS abroad. In October that year, ASIO launched an investigation into Naveed Akram because of his associations with El-Matari. The agency was assessing whether Naveed was a terrorism threat.
We can presume that there are a number of people, not to say a voluminous number, but several people spoken to who had knowledge of the person of interest to try to ascertain if a single report about a commitment to violent ideology was accurate, possibly exaggerated, possibly, in some cases, wrong, without questioning the integrity of the person.
Neil Fergus has been a respected advisor to Western intelligence agencies and currently has a complaint against ASIO over a separate matter. He has close knowledge of how investigators would assess a report like Marcus's.
They would be weighing up that information. An analyst with genuine credentials in counter-terrorism and the study of jihadist ideologies would make a recommendation.
ASIO officers interviewed Naveed Akram and his father Sajid. A security official told Four Corners Sajid promised that Naveed, then 18, would cut ties with extremists. This was the first time Sajid Akram entered the picture. Sajid Akram was a mysterious figure, even to some who knew him. He'd migrated from India in 1998, got married, and drifted between jobs in fruit shops. A senior counter-terrorism official told us investigators now believe he may have already been radicalised when he met with ASIO about his son, but convinced them he wasn't. Marcus has his own story about Sajid Akram, which Four Corners has been unable to independently verify.
Sajid and his son Naveed came to our street Dawah in Bankstown. It was the first time I met Sajid.
He says Sajid revealed he was also an extremist.
He showed his support of ISIS. He expressed his support of Isaac and his plans. He justified his plans as it's required from us as Muslims to support the Islamic State, to fight on behalf of them. And if we couldn't do that, we have to do hijrah, immigrant, to join them.
How common is it to hear someone say such things in Sydney's extremist community?
It's unusual. Someone speaks openly and freely like this, showing supporting of terror attacks. It's unusual. So that's why I raised concern about him, and I reported that to ASIO.
At that point, who was more radical, Sajid or Naveed Akram?
After this conversation, I thought Sajid was more extremist than his son.
If it was reported, as is asserted by Marcus, then it should have been referred to the Joint Counter-Terrorism Team in Sydney, which is a 3-agency collective which is designed to ensure that we have appropriate transfer of intelligence between state police, federal police and ASIO. And that means identifying people who pose potentially a risk to public safety.
In a statement, ASIO said it was constrained in its ability to respond to questions about the Akrams because of an ongoing investigation, court case and royal commission. Sajid Akram's path to radicalisation is critical to those inquiries.
Sometimes being able to identify radicalisation is quite different depending on age. Sometimes, you know, as is the case with older people, they're able to think a lot clearer and manage risks a lot better, and so they sometimes do fly under the radar.
It feels like we're all one for once as an ummah.
During ASIO's investigation into Naveed Akram, they discovered he was a follower of the radical cleric Wisam Haddad. The teenager attended Haddad's prayer centre, which drew a small following at that time.
Naveed was joining them during their activities in Al Madina Dawah Centre, like dinners, speaking to youth, encouraging them to go to Al Madina Dawah Centre and to attend classes and lessons there.
He was connecting with Haddad's youth leaders, including 22-year-old Yusuf Uwainat, an Islamic State recruiter. While ASIO was investigating Naveed, police arrested Uwainat and discovered his secret chats with other teenagers. He was indoctrinating them into ISIS and urging them to carry out suicide attacks.
The cell that Naveed was associating with, really its primary target for recruitment and indoctrination were children. The purpose of an organisation like Al Madina is to recruit a whole range of people in, but also to filter through that cohort and identify people who will be willing to or able to engage in violence.
In 2020, ASIO concluded its 6-month investigation into Naveed Akram. In a statement, the organisation said it investigated the 18-year-old using its most sensitive capabilities and found he did not intend to engage in violent extremism. Marcus and ASIO agree on that finding.
By your assessment, did Naveed Akram or Sajid Akram pose a threat at that time, 2020?
At that time, I didn't see any real violence threat or any potential attacks plans. No.
ASIO told Four Corners it assessed Naveed Akram did not support Islamic State at that time. The Prime Minister has said ASIO found there was no clear evidence Naveed or Sajid Akram were radicalised. Marcus disputes those assessments.
There must have been strong conflicting intelligence to yours for ASIO to decide at that time that neither Naveed or Sajid Akram were radicalised?
I'm not sure what was behind this decision, but I'm sure that they showed real signs of their radicalisation and of their supporting of ISIS.
So have Australians been told the real story about what happened?
What they said doesn't match what I knew about the situation.
ASIO declined an interview, but in its statement to Four Corners about claims the Akrams embraced violent extremism in 2019, it said the claims were found to be unsubstantiated. The ABC's source claimed Naveed Akram said and did things that were actually said and done by an entirely different person. Four Corners' source misidentified Naveed Akram, and therefore the associated claims are untrue. ASIO said, having reviewed all available intelligence, it stands by its assessment at that point in time. Marcus provided a response saying he strongly denies ASIO's allegation that he ever misidentified Naveed Akram, someone he met on a regular face-to-face basis over many years. This regrettable allegation is false and unsubstantiated.
It's very significant that an undercover operative tasked by ASIO has come forward to give us information, and I'm sure that ASIO will go back and look at intelligence we've provided to make sure that their assessment was the right one and what lessons could be learned. But I should emphasise that threat changes and morphs and moves all the time. So the fact that an assessment was made against Naveed Akram a few years ago and he was assessed as not a current imminent threat does not mean that he couldn't have become one later. So that's why it's vitally important. It's not a one-off investigation into a radicalised individual.
Despite concluding that Naveed Akram did not adhere to or intend to engage in violent extremism, ASIO recognised he could still go on to become a terrorist. Through the joint counter-terrorism team, the 18-year-old was added to a New South Wales police intelligence database called the Known Entity Management System, tracking potential extremists. He was no longer on the list by the time of the attack.
We're also told that New South Wales Police did an interview. It is a little difficult to see how people could subsequently say that that they didn't pose a risk and they were taken off the radar. Not impossible, but unusual. They're just questions, given the gravity of this massacre, need to be asked by an independent person.
New South Wales Police declined to respond to our questions due to ongoing investigations and inquiries. In June 2020, 2 months after ASIO concluded its investigation into Naveed Akram, his father applied to New South Wales Police for a firearms licence. Around the same time, Naveed reportedly trained with a local hunting club. He also worked as a bricklayer. New South Wales Police were banning associates of the El Matari cell from obtaining guns, while Marcus monitored the network.
There were several attempts to smuggle weapons from overseas. Another one, buying weapons in Australia. First option they discussed is if they can get weapons legally. In case they couldn't find this, they will go underground to find a weapon illegally.
New South Wales Police told a tribunal they suspected the terror cell was looking for a clean skin, a person with no criminal record who could legally acquire firearms without alerting law enforcement. Sajid Akram was allowed to continue to apply for his gun licence, even though he lived in the same house as Naveed, who'd associated with members of the cell.
We know from court documentation that concerns had been raised about the cell and their efforts to try and find somebody who might be able to obtain a firearms licence. One of the things that will likely come to light through the Richardson Review or through the Royal Commission is exactly how it is that didn't, sort of lift the concerns that were associated with the Akrams.
So here we tell the brothers and we remind
Marcus claims the Akrams attended Wisam Haddad's Al Medina Dawah Centre over several years, despite their earlier promise to disengage. ASIO didn't say whether it received such intelligence. Haddad has said no evidence has been produced showing any personal, organisational or instructional link with Naveed Akram. While Marcus was gathering intelligence, ASIO was in the midst of a major shift. In 2022, ASIO Chief Mike Burgess announced terrorism was no longer the highest priority and he was moving resources to other threats.
Espionage and foreign interference threats are outpacing terrorism threats and therefore demand more attention and more resources.
ASIO lowered Australia's terrorism threat level.
The number of cases that we are investigating has moderated. Terrorism remains a priority for my organisation and it will get the full resources it needs.
ISIS was diminished but reviving, according to the Home Affairs boss who oversaw ASIO at the time.
I think it was fair to say that by 2022, we were alert to them. There was certainly no complacency at all because we could see what they were trying to do. They'd lost their physical base, so they were trying to inspire, pushing out messages, trying to get people to ideate and turn, for instance, hatred of Jews or hatred of the West or hatred of the promiscuity, say, in the West, and turn that into violence.
ASIO shifted their priorities and concerns. They became less interested in focusing on jihadism and Islamist extremists, and they became less interested in our work and information. From 2022, my previous officers were moved to work on other aspects, and they were replaced by new officers, unqualified, new graduate. Some of them, they didn't know most important names of ISIS leaders, like Abu Muhammad al-Adnani. So that, yes, 100%, that affected our work on stopping terrorism and possible terror attack.
Senior ASIO officers with recent experience have told Four Corners of years of cuts to spending on counter-terrorism. They speak of a dramatic loss of expertise in Islamist terrorism, human intelligence capabilities and people power. ASIO said this was false, and the claim any resourcing decision increased the likelihood of the Bondi attack is irresponsible and demonstrates profound ignorance.
How difficult a metric is that for Mike Burgess when he's looking at how to prioritise, resource his officers' attention?
I won't speak for Mr Burgess, he can speak for himself, but as someone who at least up until September 23 was privy to his thinking, it's a devilish problem because in security you always know that something will go wrong. You're always just struggling with these trade-offs. They're very hard trade-offs, and these are some of the hardest jobs in government for that reason.
The relationship between ASIO and Marcus ultimately fell apart. As we reported last year, he was charged with assault and stalking in 2022. His cover was also blown, and he took out a restraining order saying an extremist was threatening to harm him. His charges were later withdrawn and dismissed, but ASIO pulled its support for his permanent residency, and he left the country in 2023. In its statement to Four Corners, ASIO described Marcus as unreliable and disgruntled, claims he denies. Marcus accused ASIO of trying to denigrate him, saying his whistleblowing is in the public interest, and the allegation he's unreliable does not withstand scrutiny. He said otherwise ASIO would not have tasked him with infiltrating dangerous terrorist networks, resulting in successful prosecutions of terrorists and prevention of a number of terrorist attacks. Have you made anything up?
If I have made anything up, they are welcome to go and sue me.
In July 2023, the New South Wales Police Firearms Registry issued Sajid Akram with a gun licence after a 3-year wait. He applied to buy firearms.
It looks like on this occasion intelligence has fallen between the cracks because he shouldn't really have been given that firearms licence. So they will be looking very carefully at why that didn't happen, why Sajid Akram, why he was issued a firearms licence when the family, if you like, or his son, Naveed, was investigated thoroughly for Islamic extremism. He should not have acquired that firearms licence.
On October 7, 2023, the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel lit a fuse inside Australia's extremist scene. One group celebrated the deaths of nearly 1,200 people.
I'm smiling and I'm happy. I'm elated. It's a day of courage.
Israel's war in Gaza sparked mass protests, and while the vast majority were peaceful, some at the Sydney Opera House chanted anti-Semitic slogans.
Everyone agrees that at a minimum, there were people calling for "Where are the Jews?" or "Where are the Jews?" There's no doubt. In my mind, this was a new level of anti-Jewish hatred that was surfacing to full public view.
At Al Medina Dawah Centre, Wisam Haddad's preachers stoked anti-Semitism,
Fight for the sake and the flag.
invoking a holy war.
Muslims, they starving for jihad. Their hearts are aching for jihad. They can't wait to be amongst the mujahideen. Towards the end of times when the Muslims will be fighting the Jews, the trees will speak, the stone will speak, and they'll say, "O Muslim, O believer, there is a Yahudi behind me, come and kill him."
When we became aware of these sermons, we publicly and privately asked the government and the police to take specific action against Wisam Haddad. We recognised in him something extremely menacing and threatening, far beyond the feelings of the community. It required police action, criminal action. That wasn't forthcoming.
The peak Jewish body took Haddad to the federal court, which later found he and his prayer centre breached racial vilification laws. In an affidavit, Haddad brazenly disclosed he'd received so-called religious training from a cleric who's a known leader in Islamic State.
ISIS are unequivocally regarded as terrorist organisations, and yet an Australian can consort with these people, be trained by them, and be free to walk the streets in this country and to preach and to advocate. I mean, that's just absurd. It's an absurdity.
In 2024, a teenager in Haddad's network carried out a brutal attack, stabbing a bishop who'd insulted the Prophet Muhammad. Police raided followers of Haddad, allegedly planning terrorism against Jews. As extremist violence escalated, ASIO increased the terrorism threat level.
Gaza is not the cause of this rising, but actually I acknowledge, yes, it's a significant driver. It's driven more emotion and heat into society. We are reviewing our caseload of assessed violent extremists. Many of those we've assessed do have awful ideologies but are unlikely to go to violence. In this environment, it's important that we retest those assessments we've made to make sure we're paying attention to the people we know about.
ASIO didn't answer questions about whether Naveed Akram or his father were on that list. Anti-Semitic violence erupted in Sydney and Melbourne, putting intense demands on ASIO. Mike Pizzullo called for a national task force to stop anti-Semitic terrorism after being sacked from his government role.
Anti-Jewish hatred was reaching a crescendo. We'd seen fire bombings, attacks on synagogues, horrendous graffiti, death threats and all the rest of it.
10 months before the Bondi attack, ASIO warned the killing of Jews was now the greatest risk to public safety.
In terms of threats to life, it's my agency's #1 priority because of the weight of incidents we're seeing play out in this country.
When more than 100,000 people marched against civilian deaths in Israel's war in Gaza, Wisam Haddad exploited the moment, posting this photo of a man on the Sydney Harbour Bridge waving the flag made infamous by jihadists. It was the ISIS recruiter Yusuf Uwainat, released from jail after meeting Naveed Akram years earlier.
The message that was sending was to their own followers, that they are going to be able to get away with this again, to say and do things that push the boundaries of what is legally allowed. As a call to arms to others. You will also be able to engage in this. Look, it's permissible because it's not being stopped.
In September 2025, Islamic State issued a proclamation.
That statement from the spokesperson for Islamic State called for attacks against Jews and against Christians. When these statements get issued, there's usually an immediate response around the world.
Naveed Akram was training. Sajid Akram bought his 6th and final firearm. Police allege that in October 2025, father and son began the final stages of planning for the massacre. They travelled to a property where they filmed themselves training with guns. The Akrams filmed a second video of themselves sitting in front of an ISIS flag and 4 firearms. Counter-terrorism sources have told Four Corners the pair singled out Zionists in their message and urged viewers to travel to the Philippines and undertake training. On the 1st of November, they flew to the Philippines en route to a former Islamic State hotspot, Mindanao. It didn't trigger an alert.
And why was Naveed Akram not put on a flight watch list? The fact that he had been investigated should have meant that when he was travelling out or returning from a vulnerable area in South Philippines, he should have been stopped.
The Akrams spent 4 weeks booked into a budget hotel in the city of Dawah. Police are still trying to determine what they were doing there. In Bondi, planning was underway for the annual Hanukkah by the Sea festival. Sources have told us the Jewish Community Security Group asked New South Wales Police for a static police presence at the event, but they declined. We asked the Premier if this was the wrong decision.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, yes, because we had the worst terrorist event in Australia's history, and it happened in Bondi on that night. So any answer other than that, you know, is ridiculous.
Police allege that after returning to Australia, the Akrams were filmed on CCTV, scoping Bondi, and later smuggling a bundle of firearms to their car. Just after 6:40 p.m. on December 14, Naveed and Sajid Akram opened fire on the crowd in Archer Park, killing 15 people and injuring 40. By then, Naveed Akram was no longer on the New South Wales Police watch list.
Obviously, something went badly wrong. And the reason we know that is that this man is responsible for a horrifying crime, and It went bad, it went incredibly bad, and we need to own up to that.
Police shot dead Sajid Akram and charged his wounded son with terrorism and murder. After years of demands for action from the Jewish community, Wisam Haddad's Al Medina Dawah Centre was ordered to close following the attack.
Wisam Haddad created the forum, the venue, that so-called study centre, that prayer group that attracted these individuals that might take up that battle cry. The fact that he's a free man today, I think, should shock all Australians. There was clear intelligence about him going back many years. And what did we think was going to happen with that? When you have young men hanging on his every word with access to weapons, what is going to happen? We've seen what's happened.
Haddad vehemently denies any knowledge of or involvement in the attack, and the ABC doesn't suggest otherwise. He said there was no evidence to support the allegation he's a spiritual leader of ISIS. Yahya told us he had nothing to do with the attack, no recent contact with the Akrams, and that he opposed the killing of innocent people. ASIO told Four Corners, tragically, it did not know what the perpetrators of the Bondi attack were planning. This is a matter of grave regret. It weighs on us heavily. But that does not mean there was intelligence that was not acted on, or that our officers made mistakes.
As a human, Muslim, Palestinian refugee, I certainly believe this terror attack is against the true teaching of Islam, and anyone, any group, tries to justify this terror attack because of the human tragedy in Gaza is complicit in this vile anti-Semitic terror attack.
A royal commission with extensive powers will now examine any intelligence failures in the lead-up to the attack. Since first warning Australians, Marcus has received death threats from ISIS sympathisers. While he's safe right now in hiding overseas, he's seeking Australia's help with protection and resettlement. He says he's ready to give evidence.
It must be so upsetting to have known these men, to have watched these men, and then to see what they carried out.
Yes, it is. What happened on Bondi Beach was a result of a set of errors and a disregard for information. How someone like this fled out of ASIO and Australian authorities' radar. I believe this is enough to stop hiding behind security policy. People were killed broadly, were murdered, and public need to understand and to see what led to this horrible terror attack.